The flood hit before dawn, the kind of sound that doesn't belong in a home, water forcing its way in like an intruder. I woke to a wet slap against the skirting boards and the low, steady gurgle of something backing up where it shouldn't. When I swung my legs out of bed, my feet didn't land on carpet. They landed in cold water that bit through my socks. The air smelled like damp plaster and old drains. I flicked the bedside lamp on. Nothing. Another switch. Nothing. Outside, rain hammered the roof like handfuls of gravel. I could hear the neighbor's alarm screaming and then cutting out, as if even it got tired. Martha! I called, not sure who I was calling for. Habit. The house answered with silence and the sound of water climbing. In the hallway, the torch on my phone turned the walls into pale, shaking tunnels. Family photos hung crooked already. I watched a framed wedding picture, my husband smiling, his cheek pressed to mine, slide off its hook and land face down with a soft, final crack. I waded into the living room and saw the brown tide pooling around the sofa legs, lifting magazines like dead leaves. A child's laugh came from somewhere in my memory, not the house. I stood there, arms wrapped around myself, and tried to think like the woman I'd always been, practical, calm, the one who sorted problems. My phone buzzed once. A missed call from my husband. Then nothing. By morning, the rain eased, but the damage didn't. The carpet squelched under my boots. The place smelled like wet cardboard and defeat. I was crouched by the front door, digging through a waterlogged drawer for anything usable, when a man in a reflective jacket stepped into my ruined living room and said, "Are you Martha Collins?" His voice was careful, like he was approaching an injured animal. I looked up, hair stuck to my face, mud on my hands. "Yes." He glanced at a clipboard. "I'm with emergency response. I need to confirm your identity for the property report." I swallowed. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because your claim file looks complicated." And that was the first moment I felt it. The flood wasn't just water. It was a doorway. I had no idea this was only the beginning. The temporary assistant's desk was set up in a sports hall that smelled like wet coats, antiseptic wipes, and instant coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everyone look pale and tired. People sat on plastic chairs clutching carrier bags full of salvaged documents, warped passports, damp birth certificates, letters that had once been important. I waited my turn, listening to the low hum of murmured arguments and the occasional sharp snap of someone crying. When I finally reached the counter, the clerk didn't look up at first. She typed, frowned, and typed again. "Name?" she asked. "Martha Collins." I gave my full details, sliding my soggy folder toward her like an offering. She clicked through screens, lips tightening. "Your claim number isn't matching the policy." "It should," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've had that policy for years. Same provider. Same address." She tilted her monitor slightly away, an instinctive movement people do when they don't want you seeing something. Then she softened, just a fraction. "It says here the policy was updated online 2 months ago." "Updated how?" She sighed. "Email address changed. Two-factor number changed. Beneficiary details changed." The word beneficiary landed like a stone. I wasn't at a will office. I was in a sports hall after a flood. Why was beneficiary even in the conversation? "I didn't change anything," I said. The clerk's eyes flicked up, and for a second I saw a human being behind the job. "I believe you," she said quietly. "But the system shows it was done with valid login credentials." My throat felt tight. "Whose email is on it now?" She hesitated, then typed something and turned the screen so only I could see. The login email wasn't mine. It was my husband's. I stared at it until the letters blurred. A small part of me wanted to laugh, because the alternative was to vomit on the counter. My husband and I had shared everything for years: bills, routines, grief, the small compromises of life. But insurance? My emergency safety net? My emergency payout? I said, voice suddenly thin. "Where did it go?" The clerk clicked once, twice. "It was issued. It shows as deposited to an account ending in 6142. I didn't recognize the number. The clerk leaned in. "Do you want me to print the activity log?" "Yes," I said too quickly. "Please." The printer whirred. Paper slid out warm, smelling faintly of toner. She placed it in my hands like it might burn. As I walked out into the cold air, the sky a flat gray, my phone buzzed again. Not my husband. A blocked number. "Stop calling. You're embarrassing yourself." My fingers went numb around the paper. I didn't know where else to go. The flood had taken my house and my sense of order in the same night. My husband wasn't answering. My policy had been altered. My payout was gone. So I did what people do when they are desperate and still trying to believe in family. I drove to the one person who always looked like she had answers. Victoria. My husband's sister lived in a neat, bright house with a gravel drive and a little tree out front that never seemed to lose a leaf. Her windows were spotless, like she wiped fingerprints away as soon as they appeared. Even the air around her place felt controlled. I sat in my car for a full minute with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at her front door. My shoes were still damp. My hair smelled faintly of floodwater no matter how many times I'd washed it. I knocked. The door opened a few inches. Victoria stood there in fitted lounge clothes, her hair smoothed back, her face composed. She looked past me at my suitcase, at the damp hem of my trousers, at the mess I'd become. "Martha," she said, like it was an item on a list. "Victoria," I replied. "I need help." Her eyes didn't soften. If anything, they sharpened. "My house flooded," I said. "I can't reach your brother. Something's wrong with the insurance. I just need somewhere to." She cut in, voice calm and precise. "You're old enough to deal with your own mess." The sentence was so clean it felt rehearsed. It wasn't anger. It was worse, dismissal. I blinked. "I'm not asking to move in. Just a few days. I'll sleep on the sofa." "No," she said, tone still even. "It wouldn't be appropriate. You'll need to take responsibility." "I have taken responsibility my whole life," I snapped, then immediately hated how it sounded. Too emotional, too easy for her to paint me as unstable. Victoria sighed, as if I was exhausting her. "You've always been dramatic in a crisis." I stepped closer, and she stepped back, keeping the door between us like a shield. "Is he with you?" I asked. "Is my husband here?" Her eyes flickered, just once, so fast I almost missed it. "He's handling things." "What things?" "Legal things," she said, and something cold moved through my stomach. As she shifted her stance, I saw past her shoulder into the hallway. A courier envelope sat on a narrow table. My husband's name, printed in bold. A solicitor's logo in the corner. Victoria noticed my gaze and angled her body to block the view. "You need to go," she said. "Victoria." She leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper that still carried steel. "Leave before you make this worse for yourself." The door closed with a soft click. I stood on her step, staring at my own reflection in her glass panel, wild-eyed, damp, desperate. In the car, I sat shaking, the heater blowing stale warm air that smelled faintly of dust. I opened my phone and stared at the missed call from my husband again, like if I stared long enough it would explain itself. I should have driven away. I should have respected the boundary she'd slammed in my face. But the truth is, I was past manners. Past pride. Past the version of myself that believed being the bigger person kept you safe. I waited down the road, parked where her hedge blocked most of my car. My hands were trembling, and I kept wiping them on my jeans like that would wipe away panic. My stomach growled. Cheap hunger, the kind you ignore until it starts making you dizzy. Victoria stepped outside 10 minutes later, phone to her ear, pacing the front path. She was laughing lightly, the way people do when they are performing ease. She turned her back to the house. The hallway table was visible through the window. The envelope. I moved before I fully decided to. I crossed her drive, heart pounding loud enough to feel in my throat. I didn't break in. I didn't touch anything. I just leaned close enough to the glass to see. The solicitor's letterhead was visible through the semi-transparent paper. My husband's name. A bold line beneath it, Last Will and Testament, Amendment. My breath caught. It felt like the air had thickened, like the world had slowed down. I pulled my phone out and snapped a photo, the screen bright in my shaking hands. A car passed on the road behind me, tires hissing on wet tarmac. I flinched like I'd been caught doing something criminal. But all I'd done was look at something that involved my life. Victoria turned suddenly, scanning the drive, and I stepped back, forcing myself to walk, to my car. I drove away with my heart slamming against my ribs, the photo sitting on my phone like a loaded weapon. My phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed my husband's work. I answered on the first ring. "Hello. It's Martha." A receptionist's voice came through, too bright. "Mrs. Collins." "Hi. I'm returning your call." "I didn't call your number," I said. A pause. Papers rustled. "Right. Sorry. There's been some confusion. Where is he?" I asked. "I can't reach my husband." Another pause, longer. In the background, I heard someone whisper, low and urgent, "Don't tell her." My skin went cold. "Who's there with you?" The receptionist cleared her throat. "He's taken personal leave." "Personal leave doesn't mean disappearing," I said, gripping the phone hard enough my fingers hurt. "Has he been in? Has anyone seen him?" The receptionist's voice dipped. "I'm not authorized to." "Please," I cut in. "This isn't gossip. My house flooded. My insurance was changed. There are legal documents." "Mrs. Collins," she said quickly. "I'm sorry. I truly am. But I can't help you." The line went dead. I stared at the screen. The silence in my car felt enormous. The windows fogged slightly from my breath, and the smell of damp fabric wrapped around me like a blanket I couldn't escape. A text came through immediately after, from the same blocked number. "Stop calling places. People are worried about you." Worried? About me. Not about him. Not about a missing husband after a disaster. That was when the suspicion stopped being a feeling and became a shape. Someone had control. Someone was managing the story. My bank app pinged with a notification. "New device logged into your account." I ended up at a budget motel because it was the only place that would take me without questions. At least, I thought it was. The parking lot smelled like stale chips and petrol. A flickering sign buzzed overhead like an exhausted insect. At the desk, the clerk was young, eyeliner smudged, chewing gum like it was the only thing keeping her awake. She glanced up, then down at her screen, then back at me with a look that wasn't neutral. "I'd like a weekly rate," I said. She hesitated. "We don't really do that." "I can pay," I said, sliding my card forward. She didn't take it. Her eyes flicked to something on her monitor. "Are you local?" "Yes." Her shoulders tightened. "We've been told not to take locals who are, having episodes." The word landed like a slap. Heat rushed to my face. "Excuse me." She looked embarrassed, but not enough to stop. "Your family called earlier." "My family?" My voice went sharp. "Who?" She shrugged helplessly, eyes dropping. "A woman. Said you've been unstable. That you might try to scam people. That you've been drinking." "Drinking?" I stared at her, mouth open, because I didn't even know how to respond to something so fabricated and yet so instantly believable to strangers. That was the genius of it. Pick a lie that fits inside people's assumptions, and they'll do the rest. I pulled my card back slowly. "I'm not drinking," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "My home flooded and my husband is missing." The clerk chewed her gum harder. "I'm sorry." I walked out before I gave her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Outside, the cold air smelled like wet asphalt. My breath came out in little clouds. I sat on the curb next to my suitcase, hands trembling, and stared at the dark windows of the motel like they were judging me. My phone battery was low. The photo of the will amendment sat in my gallery like proof of something I still couldn't name. That's when a man in a worn high-vis jacket came around the corner, carrying a takeaway coffee in a paper bag. He paused, took one look at my face, and sat down a few feet away without asking. "You look like someone who got hit twice," he said. I gave a humorless laugh that cracked at the end. "More than twice?" He offered the paper bag. "Sausage roll." I stared at it like it was a miracle. My stomach twisted. I took it with shaking hands. "Name's Owen," he said. "Night shift. Delivery. The glamorous life." "Martha," I said. Owen nodded, eyes kind but not pitying. "All right, Martha. Tell me what's actually going on. The real version." And for the first time since the water rose, I felt something loosen in my chest. We sat on the curb while cars hissed past on wet roads. Owen smelled faintly of engine oil and cheap aftershave. He ate his sausage roll in 2 bites like he'd spent years learning to survive without ceremony. I told him everything in short, broken chunks. The flood, the insurance, Victoria, the envelope, the blocked texts. Saying it out loud made it sound insane. Like a conspiracy stitched together from stress. I kept expecting Owen to look at me the way the motel clerk had, like I was unreliable. Instead, he listened. Really listened. His eyes narrowed at the details, not at me. "When did the policy change?" he asked. 2 months ago. "And your husband's missing now?" "Yes." Owen exhaled slowly. "That's not a coincidence. That's a plan." I swallowed. I don't want to believe that about him. Owen shrugged one shoulder. "Maybe it's not about him. Maybe it's about someone using him." I thought of Victoria's calm face, her perfect house. The way she'd said legal things like she was proud. Owen wiped his hands on his trousers and stood. "Come on," he said. We're not doing motel drama. We're doing facts. Facts, I repeated, like a lifeline. He nodded. Libraries open late. Warm, free, and nobody can call ahead and poison the receptionist. I followed him to his car, an old hatchback with a dented bumper and a scent of stale coffee. He started it, and the heat of blue air that smelled faintly of dust and hope. As we drove, he said, "And Martha, don't call Victoria again. Not yet." "Why?" "Because people like that don't panic when they are winning," he said. "They panic when they realize you're building receipts." The library's automatic doors slid open, and I felt like I was walking into my own investigation. The library was quiet in the way hospitals are quiet at night, controlled, purposeful. The air smelled like paper and carpet cleaner. Somewhere deep inside, a printer whirred softly. The fluorescent lights were gentler here, less harsh than the sports hall, but still unforgiving. Owen sat beside me at a computer terminal like he'd done this before. "Log in," he said. I tried. Password incorrect. I hit reset. The recovery email wasn't mine. The phone number wasn't mine. It felt like being locked out of my own life. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking. I swallowed hard. "Okay," Owen said calmly, "so we don't argue with the system. We print the logs." "How?" He pointed to a small link at the bottom of the screen, account activity. I clicked. A list appeared, dates, times, device types, IP addresses. My stomach dropped. There it was in black and white. Someone had accessed my account from a new device. 2 months ago. Then again last week. Then again this morning. Owen leaned closer, eyes scanning. "Print that." I did. The printer spat out pages, warm and crisp. The ink smelled sharp. The paper felt solid in my hands, something real. Owen tapped the IP location lookup on another screen. "We're going to map this." When the location pinged, I felt the world tilt. 2 streets from Victoria's house. My mouth went dry. That could be a coincidence. Owen gave me a look. "Martha, if it's a coincidence, I'll eat my own work boots." I almost laughed. Almost. He leaned back, cracking his knuckles. "All right. Next, bank." I checked my bank app. A new device had logged in. I pulled up the security alert history. Same timing. Same pattern. Owen's voice stayed steady. "Your job now is not to collapse. Your job is to document." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. The pain anchored me. We printed more logs. We saved screenshots. We wrote down timestamps in a cheap notebook Owen bought from the library vending machine. The pen scratched against paper like a heartbeat. As we packed up, my phone buzzed again. A message from my son. "Mum, Aunt Victoria says you're not well. Please don't come here." I stared at it until my vision blurred. I called my son anyway. The phone rang 4 times before he answered, his voice cautious like he was stepping around something sharp. "Mum." "Hi," I said, forcing my tone calm. "I just need you to listen for 1 minute." He sighed. "Mum, Aunt Victoria said." "I know what she said." I cut in, then softened. "I'm not drinking. I'm not unstable. My house flooded. I can't reach your dad. My insurance was changed from his email. I have proof." Silence. I could hear a television in the background and the faint clatter of dishes. Normal life. The sound of a world I'd been pushed out of. "She said you've been spiraling," he said. "That you've been calling places and making scenes." My throat tightened. Calling places is not a scene. It's me trying to find my husband. He hesitated. "Dad's fine." "That's what she said." "Have you spoken to him?" I asked. Another pause. "No." "There you go," I said. "You haven't spoken to him. She's just telling you he's fine." He sounded tired. "Mum, we can't deal with this right now. My wife's anxious. She thinks you might show up, Anne." "And what?" I asked quietly. "Cause trouble by existing." "Mum." I closed my eyes. The inside of my eyelids pulsed with exhaustion. "I'm not asking you to choose sides. I'm asking you to be my son for 1 day and let me stay on your sofa for a week while I sort this out." "I can't," he said, voice cracking just slightly. "Not if you're not okay." I felt something in me go very still. The moral outrage was hot, but beneath it was grief, quiet, deep grief. "All right," I said. "Then just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't let Victoria speak for me," I said. "And don't sign anything she puts in front of you." He didn't answer immediately. "Mum," he finally said, "please don't make this worse." The line went dead. Owen was watching me from across the library lobby. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He just lifted his chin, a silent question. Are we still moving? I nodded. The solicitor's office smelled like lemon polish and old paper. The scent of other people's lives filed neatly into drawers. The receptionist wore a headset and a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm here about my husband, I said, voice steady. There may have been a will amendment filed. The receptionist's smile tightened. Do you have an appointment? No. My house flooded, and I can't reach him. His sister. The receptionist's eyes flicked toward Owen, then back to me. I'm sorry, but we can't discuss anything without confirmation of his status. Confirmation. I repeated. Alive, deceased, incapacitated, she said gently. We need something official. Owen leaned forward slightly. What can you confirm without breaching confidentiality? Just process. Dates. That sort of thing. The receptionist hesitated. Then, quietly, she said, there was an amendment filed recently. My pulse spiked. Was I listed? The receptionist's gaze lowered. You weren't listed as a beneficiary. The words should have made me scream. Instead, they made me cold. And, she added softly, it wasn't just the will. I stared at her. What do you mean? She swallowed, then said the kind of sentence people say when they are trying to help without getting fired. There were other documents. Power of attorney inquiries. Asset designation questions. Things that usually happen when someone is vulnerable. Owen's jaw tightened. I heard my own voice come out thin. Who filed it? I can't say, she replied, but her eyes flicked, just once, to a stack of courier envelopes behind her. Owen stood, calm. Thank you. You've said enough. We walked back outside. The wind cut through my coat. Traffic hissed. Somewhere a siren wailed and faded. In the car, I stared out the window at the wet street lights, the orange glow reflecting off puddles. Owen broke the silence. You're not going to like this next part. What? We assume she's done more than one thing, he said. People like that don't steal one biscuit. They empty the tin. My phone buzzed again, this time, a notification from a storage facility. New unit opened in your husband's name. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed to know what was left. The air inside was thick and sour, like damp wood and mold. Every step made the floor sigh. Light came through the windows in a dull, grey wash, showing the waterline on the walls like a bruise. I wore gloves and a mask, but I could still taste the flood in the air. It clung to my throat. In the bedroom, drawers were half open, clothes piled awkwardly, like someone had rummaged in a hurry. I moved slowly, scanning for anything that didn't belong. The jewelry drawer was empty. Not just disturbed, empty. My ring box, the one I kept for special occasions, was gone. The small pouch where I kept my mother's chain, gone. It wasn't the flood. Water doesn't unzip drawers and pick what matters. I stood there, gloved hands gripping the edge of the dresser, and tried to breathe. Owen's voice echoed in my head. They empty the tin. I crouched near the back door where the flood had forced itself in. The mud was drying into a cracked crust. I shone my torch along the floor. That's when I saw it. One shoe print pressed into the silt. Clean tread, sharp edges, like the foot had stepped in after the water receded. Not my boot. Not a rescue worker's heavy tread. A clean, purposeful print. Someone had been here, after the flood, looking for things. I took photos from different angles, like Owen taught me. I placed a coin beside it for scale. My hands shook the whole time. As I left, my neighbor called across the fence. Your sister-in-law was here yesterday. Said she was collecting your husband's things. Owen told me to stop confronting Victoria in person. We don't do doorsteps, he said. We do recordings. So I called her, sitting in Owen's car with my phone on speaker and a voice recording app running. My stomach knotted as it rang. Victoria answered on the third ring, like she'd been expecting it. Martha, she said, warm as tea. Are you okay? Her sweetness was almost more offensive than the cruelty. It was a costume. I'm fine, I said, keeping my tone level. I need to know where my husband is. A soft sigh. He's dealing with something private. And I think you need to focus on yourself. I'm focusing on facts, I replied. Did you help him change the insurance policy? Silence. Then, Martha, you always look for someone to blame. It's not blame, I said. It's a question. She gave a small laugh, controlled. You're spiraling again. Again. The lie with a built-in history. Victoria, I said, carefully, there's a will amendment. I saw it. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was cooler. He signed what he needed to sign. When? I asked. When did he sign it? He signed everything already, she said, and it came out too fast, too sure. Owen's eyes widened. He mouthed, got her. I kept my voice steady. When did you last see him? A pause too long. A pause where I could hear the faint clink of a spoon against a mug, as if she was buying time with normality. Recently, she said. Where? I pressed. Martha, she said, tone shifting into reasonable adult, tough love. This is about responsibility. You can't keep expecting people to save you. I'm not asking to be saved, I said. I'm asking not to be lied to. Her voice dropped. Stop digging. You'll only embarrass yourself more. And then she hung up. I stared at my phone, recording saved, my heart pounding. Owen said quietly, that wasn't fear. That was a warning. We requested bank statements the proper way, identity verification, written requests, the solicitor's guidance. It took days. Days of cheap food, cold coffee, and sleeping in Owen's car sometimes when the motel refused me again. When the envelope finally arrived, it felt too heavy for paper. Owen handed it to me like it was evidence, because it was. Inside, a change of beneficiary form. My name removed. Victoria's name inserted. Signature, my husband's. I stared at the signature until my eyes burned. I knew his handwriting. I knew the way he looped his letters, the way he pressed hard on the downstrike. This was close. But not him. At the bottom, witness signature. Notary stamp. Owen leaned in. That stamp number looks off. I ran my finger over the ink. It was smooth, too new. The notary office, I said. We can check it. Owen nodded. We will. I turned the page, and something fell out, a photocopy of a notary certificate with an address. Owen whistled softly. All right. We've got a trail. The air in the car felt thick. I could smell Owen's coffee and the dampness in my own coat. My hands shook. I didn't want to believe my husband had done this willingly. But the form was real. And real things don't care about what you want. Owen said, if that notary is fake, it's not just family drama. It's fraud. The notary address led to a small office building. The kind with faded signage and a lobby that smells like old carpet and cheap air freshener. We drove there under a pale afternoon sky that looked tired. The suite number existed. The door did not. The hallway ended in a blank wall where the office should have been. Owen knocked anyway, because sometimes stubbornness is a tool. Nothing. A woman from the neighboring office leaned out, eyebrows raised. Can I help you? Notary office, Owen said, pointing. Used to be here. She snorted. Closed last year. Landlord kicked them out. My stomach dropped. Owen thanked her and we went back to the car. The heater was broken, so we sat in cold silence for a moment, breathing fog into the air. Owen pulled up a database on his phone, State Notary Registry. He typed in the stamp number. Result, mismatch. Either your husband time-traveled, Owen said dryly, or someone got creative. I laughed once, sharp, ugly. It was the first laugh I'd had in days. Owen's humor faded as he scrolled. There's a complaint linked to this stamp. Complaint about what? He turned the phone to me. The complaint included a company name. Victoria's Company. I stared at it, heart thudding. The pieces were aligning into something I didn't want to see. Owen said, if she's already been flagged for dodgy paperwork, this gets bigger than inheritance. I tried to work. I needed money. Pride doesn't pay for meals or phone charging. A clinic laundry had posted a temp opening, early starts, hard work, but honest. The laundry room smelled like bleach and steam. Machines rumbled like distant thunder. The supervisor, a tired woman with kind eyes, looked at my CV and nodded. Strong work history, she said. We need reliable. I'm reliable, I said. My house flooded. She softened. I get it. Halfway through the interview, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face changed, subtle, but unmistakable. Her shoulders stiffened. She cleared her throat. I'm sorry. We can't proceed. What? My voice cracked. Why? She avoided my eyes. We can't take the risk. Risk of what? I asked, keeping my tone controlled, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. She lowered her voice. I got a call. Anonymous. Said you've had issues with fraud. That you're unstable. I felt heat rise in my face, then drain away, leaving cold. That's a lie. She gave me an apologetic look. I can't verify either way. As I walked out, the air outside tasted like damp metal. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear in a new, brutal way. Victoria wasn't just refusing to help. She was actively dismantling my ability to survive without her. Owen said later, "That's escalation. Next it'll be safety." Owen suggested we drive past Victoria's house at dusk. "Not to confront," he said. "To observe." The streetlights flickered on one by one, casting amber pools on wet pavement. Victoria's house glowed warm and perfect behind its windows. A Christmas wreath still hung on her door, out of season but expensive looking, like she didn't notice time the way normal people did. Then I saw it. My husband's car. In her driveway. My breath caught so hard it hurt. That car had been missing since the flood. I'd assumed it was washed out or in a garage somewhere. Seeing it here made my skin prickle. Owen parked down the road. "No sudden moves," he murmured. A shadow moved behind an upstairs window. The blind snapped shut. The sound was small, but it felt like a gunshot. I lifted my phone and took a photo, hands shaking. Zoomed in on the number plate. On the driveway. On the window. Owen's voice was low. "That's not luck. That's confirmation." My mouth was dry. "So he's here." "Or his property is," Owen said. "Either way, it's leverage." I stared at the house, and something in me hardened. Not into hatred. Into resolve. As we drove away, Owen's phone pinged. "Storage unit confirmed. Payment made from your husband's account." The storage facility was on the edge of town, rows of metal doors like clenched teeth. The air smelled like diesel and damp concrete. A security camera followed us with slow, mechanical indifference. Owen had helped me get a legal route to access, through the bank's fraud team and the solicitor's advice. Paperwork. Identification. Receipts. When the lock finally clicked open, the sound echoed down the corridor like a warning. Inside, the unit smelled like cardboard and dust. Boxes stacked neatly. Labels in neat handwriting. Victoria's handwriting. "Martha, keep." Like I was an item. Like my life could be sorted into piles. My throat tightened. I moved carefully, opening boxes. Inside, my passport. My mother's chain. Deed copies. Bank letters. The folder that held my marriage certificate. Not washed away. Collected. Controlled. At the bottom of the stack was a folder marked in thick black marker. Willow Plan B. Owen's face had gone hard. "Open it." My hands trembled as I untied the string. Inside was a cheap voice recorder and a handwritten note. "If she asks, say she's sick." I stared at the words until they blurred. The room felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. Owen picked up the recorder, turned it over. "It's got battery." I swallowed. "Play it." He pressed the button. My husband's voice crackled out, tired, frightened, real. "Victoria, stop," he said. "This is my wife." A pause. A rustle. Then a woman's voice, close to the mic, cold and controlled. "You'll do it, or you'll lose everything." A thud, like something hitting a table. Then silence. My knees went weak. I had to sit on the concrete floor, cold seeping through my trousers. Owen crouched beside me. "Martha," he said quietly, "this is coercion." I stared at the recorder like it was a living thing. Owen added, "And if she coerced him into paperwork, what else did she do to keep him quiet?" Owen and I didn't rush. That was the hardest part. Every instinct in me wanted to run back to Victoria's house and break down her door. But Owen was right. Rage is easy to dismiss. Evidence isn't. We followed the trail. Quietly. The complaint linked to Victoria's company turned into more when we dug public records, small business filings, court listings. We sat at the library again under buzzing lights, eating cheap sandwiches that tasted like cardboard. Victoria's company had an audit. A civil claim. Allegations of diverted funds and falsified records. Owen tapped the screen. "If she gets your husband's assets, she can plug holes, pay people off, make problems disappear." My stomach churned. "So this is about money." "It's always about money," Owen said. Then he added, softer, "and control." We found something else. My identity had been used as collateral for a small loan. It wasn't enormous, but it was enough to ruin credit, enough to keep me unstable and dependent. I stared at the loan document, hands trembling. "This is my name." Owen nodded. "And not your signature." I felt moral outrage rise, hot and clean. The humiliation wasn't just personal. It was strategic. Owen said, "We need a lawyer who doesn't blink. And we need to treat this like a case. Legal aid was in a building that smelled like photocopier toner and cheap hand soap. The waiting room chairs were cracked vinyl. People sat with tired eyes and folders full of problems. Our solicitor, Ms. Fletcher, had sharp eyes and a voice that didn't waste words. She listened while I laid out the timeline, my voice controlled, my hands clenched in my lap. Flood date. Insurance changes. IP logs. Beneficiary form. Notary mismatch. Storage unit. Recording. Employment sabotage. Loan in my name. She didn't interrupt. She just wrote, pen moving steadily across paper. When I finished, she looked up and said, "This is coercion. This is fraud. And if your husband is missing or being held, this becomes criminal." The word criminal made my stomach drop. Hearing it from a professional made it real in a new way. Ms. Fletcher leaned forward. "Do you have original documents or copies?" "Copies," Owen said. "And printed logs." "Good," she said. "We build an evidence chain. No gaps. No drama." Owen's mouth twitched. "You mean I can't storm a mansion?" Ms. Fletcher gave him a look. "Not unless you want to ruin my case." Owen held up his hands. "Understood." Ms. Fletcher outlined steps like a map: formal bank fraud report, insurer fraud report, police welfare check request, and a meeting with the bank's compliance team to freeze suspicious transfers. "Your goal," she said to me, "is not revenge. Your goal is restoration and protection." I swallowed. "I want him safe." Ms. Fletcher nodded once. "Then we move carefully." As we left, Ms. Fletcher said, "If she senses pressure, she may escalate. You need to be cautious, especially at night." That night, I stayed in a different motel under a different name, thanks to Owen's practical brain and Ms. Fletcher's advice. The room smelled like stale detergent and old smoke. The carpet felt damp under my shoes, even though it was dry. I slept in my clothes, phone charging beside me, recorder in my pocket like a talisman. At 2:14 in the morning, the door handle rattled. Not a drunk stumble. Not someone at the wrong room. Slow, deliberate pressure. My entire body went cold. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't speak. I sat up, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the buzzing light above the bedside table. The handle moved again. A small scrape, like a key testing a lock. Then, silence. A footstep. Soft. Receding. I didn't move for a full minute. My mouth tasted like metal. My hands shook so hard I could barely grip my phone. Owen's voice came from the chair by the window, because he'd insisted on sitting there all night, just in case. He stood and flicked on the lights in one sharp motion. "Someone's playing," he said quietly. In the morning, outside my door, a black latex glove lay on the doormat like a threat that didn't need words. Owen picked it up with a plastic bag. "Evidence," he said. I stared at it and felt something shift. This wasn't just paperwork now. This was physical. Owen said, "We're done being passive. Next we put her in a room she can't charm her way out of." Ms. Fletcher arranged the next step, a meeting at the bank under compliance review. Not a family argument. Not a doorstep scene. A controlled environment where Victoria couldn't rewrite reality with a smile. The bank conference room smelled like clean carpet and expensive coffee. The lights were bright and unforgiving. A compliance officer sat with a laptop open, face neutral. 2 chairs on one side. 1 chair on the other. Victoria arrived in a tailored coat, hair glossy, posture perfect. She smiled like she was attending a charity board meeting. "Martha," she said warmly, "I'm so glad you're getting help." I didn't react. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. Ms. Fletcher slid the evidence folder across the table with controlled precision. "We're here to document irregularities," she said. Victoria's smile tightened. "Irregularities?" The compliance officer spoke, calm. "We have activity logs showing changes to beneficiary designations, device logins, and a notary inconsistency. We need explanations." Victoria's eyes flicked to me, a flash of annoyance quickly smoothed over. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "My brother asked me to assist. Martha has been unstable since." Ms. Fletcher held up a hand. "No character statements. Only facts." Victoria's jaw clenched, then relaxed. "Of course." The compliance officer turned the screen toward her. "This IP address matches near your residence." Victoria blinked slowly. "I don't understand technology." Owen, sitting quietly in the corner, murmured, "Funny, because you seem to understand paperwork." Victoria ignored him, addressing the compliance officer with smooth professionalism. "If Martha has been hacked, I feel terrible. I'm only trying to protect my brother's legacy." "Legacy again?" Not marriage. Not love. The compliance officer asked about the notary. Ms. Fletcher produced the registry mismatch. Victoria's mask slipped for half a second, just a tiny crack. She recovered instantly. When the meeting ended, the compliance officer said, "We will freeze transfers and escalate this to our fraud unit." Victoria stood, leaning toward me, voice low enough only I could hear. "If you keep pushing," she whispered, "you'll regret it." I met her eyes. My voice stayed calm. "I'm not pushing. I'm documenting." Her face hardened. For the first time, her cruelty wasn't dressed up as concern. As she walked out, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and went pale, just for a second, before she caught herself. It unraveled in the way real cases do, slowly, then all at once. The fraud unit traced a temporary power of attorney my husband had signed after a medical incident months earlier, something I'd known about but hadn't thought much of because he'd told me it was just in case. The document was legitimate. The way it had been used was not. Victoria had expanded it with forged amendments, filed changes, moved assets, changed beneficiaries. She didn't need my husband's love. She needed his name. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. A contractor tied to Victoria's company had done repairs on our property's backflow valve 2 weeks before the flood. The report showed tampering, just enough to make a bad storm catastrophic. Not a magical coincidence. Not a movie twist. Just small sabotage that would look like weather. Ms. Fletcher's voice was steady when she told me. "It appears the flood was leveraged." Leveraged? Like my home was a financial instrument. I sat in Owen's car, staring at the dashboard, and felt grief hit in waves. Not triumph. Not victory. Just grief that my life had been used as a tool. Owen broke the silence. "I told you," he said softly. "People like that empty the tin." My phone rang as if the world wanted to punctuate the moment. A hospital number. I answered with shaking hands. "Hello." A calm voice. "Is this Martha? We have a patient we believe is connected to you. He was admitted under a different name." My heart stopped. "My husband." "We can't confirm over the phone," she said gently. "But you should come." Owen started the car without a word, and I realized my revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be legal.